The Football Kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Welcome along to the Football Kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is the best place to interact live with us here on the show each Friday. You can leave us a comment if you're a subscriber to our YouTube channel. For most teams, it's 3 games left in the Premier League. Still 4 to wrap up for some. But we'll be focusing on both ends of the table. The relegation fight is still very hard to call at this point. Arsenal are assured of a top 2 finish following their win against Newcastle last weekend. And themselves and Man City both in action this Sunday in live games you can hear about here on Off the Ball as well. We'll tell you more about that in a little bit, but the title race continues and the race for the top 4 is still alive, with Liverpool now just behind Newcastle and Manchester United in the race for the top 4. Delighted to say Keith Treacy's here alongside me. We've got Colm Boohig as well. How are you getting on, lads?
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Keith. Big weekend of football. We're coming obviously off the back of Manchester City playing in Europe against Real Madrid. Some surprise results last week, including that Brighton thrashing of that by Everton that we didn't really expect to happen. We thought Brighton were going to go and get a result there, but it's changed around the complexion towards the bottom of the table, Keith, with Leeds losing against Manchester City, then the results going against them, so they now sit inside the bottom 3. John Giles on was last night. He reckons Leeds are in big trouble and are potentially going to go down now. We talked about their home record a lot, and the first game we're looking at is Leeds against Newcastle, which is 12:30 on BT Sport tomorrow. Leeds now with just 1 win in 5 at Ellen Road over the last bit as well. Big Sam's got a job to keep them up now.
Yeah, he does. We all knew it was going to be a massive ask for Sam. They've a couple of games left, and even this Newcastle game, I'm not saying Sam and the team would have wrote it off in their heads, but I don't think anybody's really expecting Leeds to go and get something from this with their home form being so poor as well, having 1 in 5 now. Defensively, huge problems. I just don't think the defenders are up for it. You look at the back 4 that started the last game: Firpo, Ayling, Christensen and Wober. They're nowhere near good enough to play in the Premier League week in, week out. But Sam's remit is not to come in and make these players better. It's just to fire them in, to keep them in the league somehow through hook or crook. It's not going to be pretty, but conceding 69 goals in 35 games sort of tells you where the problem is. They've an awful lot of good players that can score goals: Rodrigo, Sinisterra, Harrison, Somerville. But I think with Newcastle coming in and what Arsenal did to Newcastle last weekend, I think Newcastle will have the bit between their teeth. And yeah, Leeds only 19% of the ball against Manchester City, so could be a couple of heavy legs there as well. But look, Sam will demand something. The first 20 minutes will tell us an awful lot, because what Newcastle do to teams in St James is high energy, high press, lots and lots of endeavour. Leeds will try and do that to Newcastle in the first 20 minutes. So the first 20-25 minutes of this one will be big, but I can't see anything other than Newcastle's class shining through.
Yeah. Knowing Allardyce yourself, what would he have said first day in the door with these Leeds players?
He would have had a look at people. The first thing he would have done was probably an 11v11. He'd have mixed up what he thought the best team was. Made it quite even in the 11v11. But he would have had a look who's tackling well, who's putting their head in front of things, who basically looks like they're up for the fight. That's what he would have been looking for. And like I said, he's not coming in here to try and improve any of these players. He's not going to tell them how to play. He's just going to put a defensive structure on it, get them running through brick walls and see what they can do. And I tell people all the time, people think the Premier League is technically it's one of the best leagues in the world, but if you run around and get a bit of sweat on the jersey and just try, fans will largely accept that. And
what kind of drills will Robbie Keane be doing with the strikers, do you reckon?
Well, finishing drills, an awful lot of finishing drills. I think Bamford is one who needs a little bit. He looks a little bit off, and I'm not having a go at him. I know he's been in and out with injuries, but the likes of Rodrigo, the top goal scorer, he didn't start against Manchester City. You would imagine it's going to be a very, very different game, but it's not one that I think Leeds expect to get something out of. But if Leeds were to come away with a draw there, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Would Robbie be an arm around the shoulder type coach, do you reckon, or would he be like, come on, you're way better than this? This is no good.
Well, I'm not too sure what Robbie be like as a coach. When I played with Robbie, one of the only games I ever started for Ireland was against Northern Ireland in the Aviva, and Trapattoni said his team talk, and I was still pretty much in the dark with what he was saying because the English was so broken. But then Robbie took over, and the pride of the Irish pride just burst out of him. He was telling us it's a derby against Northern Ireland and we go and put these to the sword, and it was proper motivational, and he was just sees that he's a proud Irish man. And look, I'm sure he'll be projecting that on now to the Leeds strikers. Have a bit of pride in what you're doing and try your best, but there's nobody better, is that, to teach you how to hit the back of the net.
Was that game the Carling Home Nations Cup? Or I'm not sure exactly how they branded it.
Carling Cup of Nations, yeah.
Cup of Nations.
I think it's still the last trophy Ireland won.
Yeah, you won that. I was saying that. You won that.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether that really counts. It was just a...
Where's your medal?
It wasn't a medal. It was like a little plaque, like a little glass plaque with a 3D thing of the Aviva in it. So it wasn't really a trophy, but a nice little thing.
Like, call into the Treacy gaff now. Will I see it? Like, it's the front and centre.
It's in my ma's house. It's in the shrine, so you'll have to wrestle off of her.
All right, I'll try my best.
What's the best thing she's got in the shrine then?
There's a couple of man of the match things for Ireland underage, like a couple of Waterford crystal bowls and stuff like that. Medals. I actually haven't been in the house in a while, so I'm not too sure myself, but it's kept under lock and key anyway.
I appreciate we've gone off the beaten track here, but why not keep them in your own house? Like, I always wonder about this, because Kenny Cunningham was telling us that basically his championship medal and most of his important jerseys are in a bag sitting somewhere in his parents' house.
Yeah, I think when you're inside the circle, they don't really mean that much to you, because you're a footballer, you've been through it. But I think my ma just likes to have them there. It's a bit of a talking point when you walk into the sitting room and people see it. So look, there, my mother and my father were a big part of what I did in football, so if they want to have them things, they're more than welcome to them.
Have you seen David Myler's gaff, where he's got all of his jerseys framed up behind his very nice shot?
Yeah, that looks like an awful lot of work and very, very expensive, so it wouldn't be something that I'd be too keen to. I think I asked for one jersey in me whole time, and it was Robbie Keane's Liverpool jersey. Benny McCarthy asked Robbie for it, and Robbie gave it to me, and I gave it to my brother. My brother's a big Liverpool fan, and he plays 5-a-side games in it. Has all the Premier League stickers, Robbie Keane on the back, and you're thinking he'll cherish that. No, just plays 5-a-side now. So
I presume nobody believes it's actually a Robbie Keane match-worn jersey. This expect
probably not. People probably just looking and go, he's gone and got Robbie's printing on it, but it's actually Robbie Keane's match-worn Liverpool jersey. So yeah, running around the 5-a-side somewhere.
Superb. Newcastle, as you mentioned, obviously they need a response after what happened last week. We were kind of thinking that's a very tricky game for Arsenal to navigate, but Arsenal played very well, and they've ended this Newcastle run at home, which was really good. But Newcastle are also quite good on the road. I was looking at their away record. They've won 4 of the last 5 on the road, so no surprise. Obviously they're sitting inside the top 4. They've been good home and away this year.
Yeah, they've been excellent. It's very hard to look at anything that Newcastle can really improve. Defensively, very, very solid. Some of the best defenders in the Premier League this season. I think Botman's been brilliant. Dan Bourne going there has been excellent. Only 8 million as well. So some of the signings have been really, really good. Up the top of the pitch, players are improving. Joe Linton, Almiron, Bruno Guimaraes, linking everything from back to front. And I say this all the time about Newcastle. If you were to replace 2 or 3 of their starting 11 with some class players, Champions League players, I think these become a really, really good team. Look, Arsenal were excellent against Newcastle. They really were. But as an Arsenal fan, I was terrified when we were going to St James's, having seen what can happen to teams up there, what happened to Spurs up there. When Murphy hits the bar in the first 2 minutes, Ramsdale makes a couple of saves, and then all of a sudden Odegaard just switches it on, and it was brilliant from Arsenal. We rode that luck a bit, but I think every team is going to have to do that at St James's when it's bouncing like that. So Newcastle, I think, will demand a bit of a bounce, but I don't think it's an easy game. But like I say, I think if Newcastle can match the intensity of Leeds, the class should just shine through.
There's no chance Newcastle fall out of the top 4, is there?
Possibly. With Liverpool, like, it's hard to get behind Liverpool. I know Liverpool's fixtures, they've won 5 on the bounce now, but I think there's been an air of luck in 1 or 2 of them games, so it's very hard to say Liverpool are in great form. They're blowing teams away. It's not. They're sort of just getting over the line. And look, that's a great thing to have in your Arsenal as well. So fair play to them. But I think as an underdog, looking from the outside in, I'd like to see Newcastle do it, just because it's been so long. And last year they were in a relegation battle at Christmas, so it'd be great to go from a relegation battle at Christmas to Champions League football the following season.
Yeah, I think expectation would be that Newcastle, as you say, a difficult game, but probably should win. I mean, from Sam Allardyce's point of view, does he come in and, I won't say a free hit, but look at the first 2 games and think no one's really expecting us to go get something at the Etihad or to beat Newcastle at home? It's probably the last 2 games that are going to determine what happens to Leeds.
Yeah, you would have thought the last 2 games, especially the West Ham one, if West Ham obviously got a good result in the Europa competition last night, so they might get to the final, they might have one eye off it, they probably will be safe in the Premier League as well, so maybe the West Ham one will be a big one. But Everton are playing Bournemouth as well the last game of the season, so it looks like everything's just going to keep being in the balance. But yeah, I think Leeds will target the last 2 games. But like I say, I know in the back of my head it sounds quite contradictory. I don't think Leeds expect to get anything from this game, but Sam will just be thinking, if we can keep Newcastle quiet, get them a little bit disinterested, maybe hit them on the counter attack. Or set pieces would be huge in this game as well.
This is one of the many Sam Allardyce derbies now, Leeds Newcastle. It's hard to believe that he managed them with only 8 short months in 2007, and when they appointed him, he arrived by helicopter May 2007, and 8 months later he was shown the door, company car taken off him. He had no way of getting home, so he had to get a lift off his agent.
Should have got the helicopter.
The mighty has fallen that quickly, because up until then he was at Bolton for so long. Like, you would consider him one of the longer serving managers in the Premier League, but he's become this kind of troubleshooter ever since Newcastle. That was a turning point. Like, is he as good as he rated himself in that first press conference for Leeds?
He is. Like, people, when you hear I'm as good as Pep Guardiola, people think they liken that to playing football like Pep Guardiola. He's not tactically the same as Pep Guardiola, but in terms of what he does as a manager, I mean, look, I said this last week on the show, if you're in a relegation battle, which Leeds are, you don't want Pep coming in the door, because Pep is there to improve players, bring a philosophy in, play from the back, all this sort of stuff that takes weeks, if not months, to get into the team. Sam Allardyce is just going to go in there and make them harder to beat. Hopefully they'll nick goals on set pieces, and they have talent in the team. Like I say, some of the strikers are very, very good. They can hit the back of the net. They haven't been able to keep people out. That's the big, big worry. But like I say, Sam will just put a little bit of rigidness in there, a little bit of stubbornness, and if they can keep teams out, they have half a chance. But it's been very difficult keeping teams out so far.
Yeah. What's he like as a manager, as a man manager then, Sam Allardyce?
He's actually quite good. I actually, like, me, when I was at Blackburn, Sam Allardyce got rid of me and we parted ways, and I was in and out under Sam, and he was defensively very, very rigid, almost told you what to do when you had the ball. There was no sort of free play, do what you like.
So as a winger, I presume you were expected to tuck back more so.
Yeah, it was always think about defensively rather than attackingly. It was pretty much the same under Trapattoni. Don't leave yourself exposed going backwards. Always think about what could happen rather than what you can do forward. So you're always thinking defensively. But Sam, you know, it's strange to think, because like I say, he finished my time at Blackburn. We didn't get on too well in a professional sense, but off the pitch, I've all the time in the world for the bloke. He really was absolutely spot on with me. He was nice. He was a little bit heavy-handed at times, but I wasn't the best player in the world to be managing either, so he had to be heavy-handed with me at times. But man management, he gets people to run through brick walls, he gets them motivated, and I think that's all you can ask for when you're in a dogfight, is that the lads give everything.
Do you know what he did with his payoff from Mike Ashley at Newcastle?
Something ridiculous.
Bought himself a lavish villa in Spain's Costa Blanca, swiftly dubbed Casa St. James. Does that surprise you?
No, I have a little story for you. We were in Austria on a pre-season tour, and you know you charter flights over to these places, and we were flying back, and the plane hadn't taken off from whatever airport it was in, so the girl was like, listen, it has to get the landing gear fixed and then it'll be over. 3 or 4 hour delay. Sam said no, not having this. So he's like, is there another plane around? Oh yeah, we have a plane that's on the tarmac, we can get it turned around. £60,000. Jesus. He just whipped his card out. Now I'm sure he got it back from Blackburn in the end, but to be able to whip the old debit card out and just go, yeah, well, no problem, like, but that sort of thing, like, we're all sitting in big recliners on the plane on the way home, you're thinking, yeah, this guy's alright, like, he looked after his players and he does that, so he knows how to get players on side.
Big Sam's gold card. Any normal manager would have said, no problem, we'll go back into the airport, we'll have a drink and we'll get back in 3 hours time.
That's what I'd have done. I'd have gone to the bar and bought everybody a pint. It's a little bit cheaper, isn't it, than the 60 grand.
He's got to be a good night out, Sam.
I've had a couple of meals from a couple of glasses of wine, and he is a nice bloke. If he was to sit here, he just enjoy his company. Professionally, as a player, it gets a little bit bogged down in the percentage football and stuff like that, but look, as a person, I think everybody would actually enjoy his company and having a bit of a pint or a bit of dinner.
That's very interesting. Jonathan Wilson was saying last week, well, he had an article as well about it, where he was saying that Big Sam was almost like a manager who was ahead of his time in the 2000s, but maybe time has gone past him now. That he is old school, but maybe we thought he was too old school at the time, when actually he was looking at diets, looking at stats, looking at all that kind of stuff very early on. Yeah,
he was big into that sort of stuff. I remember him whipping me into his office one day and showing me Morton Gams Pedersen's stats, and I think they were playing United or something, but he had sprinted forward as quick as he could, and the play had broke down, so he turned around and sprinted back, and we had won it again, and he'd done about 6 or 7 doggies at full pelt, and he was like, that's why Morton's in my team. And he had all these stats to back up the running, passing accuracies, how many times you cross the ball, and that was one of the big things he put into my head as a winger. At half time he would always say in my head, how many times have you crossed the ball this half? and it was just something that I would inevitably start doing. I'd cross the ball 4 or 5 times and a half, and I knew it was coming. How many times? 4 or 5, Gaffer. And then it'd be, well, how many had quality on them, and you get broke down again. But look, he gets bogged down as this sort of dinosaur, old school. He's not like that. He is scientific. He reads into all this stuff. It will be 4-5-1, 4-4-2, quite rigid percentage football, but he will be looking at the science of it all and just trying to eke out any little percentage he can. So he's far from a dinosaur.
Morton Gams Pedersen, hero of my fancy football team in 2006-2007, one of the most productive cheap players that you could buy that season. He was fantastic.
Great left
he was like the cheap Ronaldo that year in fancy football. Manchester United against Wolves is a 3 p.m. kick-off Premier Sport tomorrow. Wolves at this stage are safe, Keith, after that victory against Aston Villa last week. They officially can't go down. Manchester United come in this on the back of what I'd say would be a disappointment, because they played okay against West Ham, but then that David De Gea error leads to them losing 1-0 and leaves the door open for Liverpool to get into the top 4.
Yeah, the De Gea one, I remember saying last week about United, maybe they need a couple of players, and I touched on the goalkeeper, so I'm not quite sure if people are having De Gea or not, and for me it's just one mistake too many. It seems to, and I'm not talking about this season, I'm talking about his reign as a United goalkeeper, as United number 1. It just seems to be a little bit flaky, and that was a routine enough save. I know there's a slip on that, but he should be planted, he should be set for it. And as a player, when you hit that shot, you're thinking that's not going in, and then it hits the back of the net against a Spanish international, you're thinking it's just not good enough goalkeeping. But yeah, look, I think the one thing that for Eric Ten Hag is he has the cup final coming up, and he can, on the 3rd of June against Manchester City, he can use that as motivation. He can crack the whip and say, if anybody starts to tail off here, they won't be playing in the final. So he can use that as a little bit of a carrot. That's the one thing. But 2 points behind Newcastle, they play the game more as well. I think it's Newcastle's to throw away. I don't think United can go and catch them. But look, I think, what more do United want? They've won a trophy. They might get Champions League football. Probably more than likely will get Champions League football. That's, I think, all that can be expected out of that squad, to be honest with you.
David De Gea is a conundrum, isn't he? Like, that goal he conceded against West Ham, it goes full circle. That goes right back to his debut 2011 Community Shield against Manchester City, Edin Dzeko's goal from long range at Wembley, which is a slightly harder hit shot. But then, like, in the middle of the last decade, De Gea was consistently United's best player, like officially, like named their best player, and he has the most clean sheets this season. Is his lack of concentration at times, it's because he's never been challenged in his 12 years at United for the number 1 jersey, or has he reached the limit of his ability?
It's hard to say. I think there probably is a bit of I'm the number 1, and you need that competition in the team. You can't have lads getting comfortable. As soon as you get comfortable, you start getting these flaky performances because they know they're not going to get dropped. But look, what you're saying about De Gea having more clean sheets than anybody, I take that. It's a double-edged sword, because De Gea has made 1 or 2 mistakes, but United have only scored 49 goals in 34 games. That's the 9th best attack in the league.
Not shocking, yeah.
That's not good enough either. So De Gea's mistakes have been highlighted because the attack are not putting the goals in. So if say, for instance, if United go and beat West Ham 2-1, nobody really cares about De Gea's mistake because they're going to win the game. The fact that they've lost it, it's been highlighted and it's jumping on him. But I think there is problems at the top of the pitch. Rashford's 16 goals and 5 assists. I think that's papered over an awful lot of cracks, and people is saying, at one point people were saying, can United actually challenge for the league? That was never going to happen. The realism to this is that they're exactly where they should be, maybe even a touch of overperforming at the minute. So Champions League football, won a trophy, great 4th season for Ten Hag.
Does that change a lot if they get a good number 9 in the summer?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that is, but say if they get in a good central striker.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's looking for the central striker. Other than Manchester City, I think everybody's going to be in the market. I think Arsenal are going to be in the market for another one. And United are in this transfer window. Well, when the transfer window comes around, that United aren't the big boys anymore. They can't just put a bid in on the table and players are going to go to the team and say, I want to play for Manchester United. It's not like that anymore. Old Trafford is looking a little bit old. It's not quite the best stadium there anymore. It's not the best team. It's not the best squad. They're probably not even paying the best wages. So look, I don't know how Manchester United get the best teams to them, especially with the Champions League football will help, but I don't know. When you're looking at the best players in the world, I don't see why they'd be attracted to Manchester United.
What's a massive salary, Champions League football if they get it?
Massive
is that not
salary,
enough?
History of the
it
club.
is, but who would, if say Liverpool and Manchester, certainly not Liverpool, if Arsenal and United are in for the same player, they're only going to go
Would
to
you not go
Arsenal.
to United? I mean, are Arsenal going to get better next season?
I think so, yeah. I think Arsenal will get better. I think if you're playing in Europe somewhere and you're looking at the agent knocks and said, listen, Arsenal and Manchester United want you, I think Arsenal are a much better proposition. They're challenging for the league. They're a younger team. They look just more on the front foot. Arteta looks like he has better ideas, and I think Arsenal are playing better football, not just placing the league. I think Arsenal are a better team to watch than Manchester United. Up against Newcastle last week, they were excellent, and United at times have bored me, but look, there is little bits of class in there, but at times it's been quite methodical, a little bit boring. But yeah, I struggle to see how they get the best players in.
Would you have sympathy for tired players at this time of season like this? That was United's first free midweek since September. Is that a reason for 5 out of the last 10 games they haven't scored? Man City have a very similar schedule, for example, but obviously a far better squad.
Yeah, but people would be saying, what they have on the bench, what City can rotate, the players they have. I do have some sympathy for them, but at the same time, like it is what it is. You know the schedule is coming, and if you're going to be an elite club in England, you're going to have a very, very congested fixture list. So it's hard to say I feel sorry for them, but they should be doing better. And being tired, I get that, but it's a final little push now.
Players probably prefer playing games in training, though, do they?
Of course,
every 3, because you don't have to do as much training, obviously. Then you can't do that much training if you're playing every 3 days.
Yeah, but that was one of the things. I obviously played a big bulk of my career in the Championship, and a lot of it's Saturday, Tuesday. And it's brilliant because Friday sort of a down day. It's just tactical and maybe boxes, small games. Thursday you can't do too much because you have a game. On a Saturday you're off. On a Wednesday and a Tuesday you have a game anyway. So the week is sort of broke down to very little amounts of training. And it's just games, and I think every player prefers that. But the one thing you don't want to be is a fringe player, because if you're on the bench in these games and you're not getting the full whack of training, all of a sudden you become unsharp. You're not as fit as the lads who are starting every week, and then the boy who's playing ahead of you gets injured and you're in and you're not quite sharp, you're not quite where you need to be. So it's a big balancing act, but yeah, players prefer to play games than training.
Colm, you mentioned De Gea's record in goal. So only 8 goals conceded by Manchester United at Old Trafford this year. They're 27 games unbeaten going back to Real Sociedad back in September. They are a very, very difficult team to beat there. Yeah,
and funnily enough, Wolves won there last year for the first time since 1980. That was all the way back in January, and Ralph Ragnick was in charge last year. Yeah, they're very good at home, Will. Like, they're shocking away. That's the simple fact of the matter. And I think the problem for Manchester United is that their season peaked on the 26th of February, the League Cup final. I remember going into that week, everyone was waxing lyric about Casemiro. There was a big piece in the Sunday Times, but he's the best thing that's happened to United since Eric Cantona. That was literally the comparison. You had Varane and Martinez in the middle of the defence, and it was going really well for United, but since then it's gone downhill a bit. And like you say, Will, it's an absolutely correct point in that Old Trafford is a saving grace for United, and that is the one huge improvement of the season. Not just the trophy for the first time since 2017, but the fact that the home form has drastically improved. If they can match that in any way with the away form next season, they'll be a force to be reckoned with. I personally think that it's still a very attractive proposition. You have a very forward thinking manager who seems to have an identity. The problem they have is they have no number 9, like
they've no number 9,
and maybe a goalkeeper.
Also, I think when Casemiro got that red card and he came out of the United team for 3 games, I'm not saying it unravelled, but he was a big miss. And if you're very reliant on I'm not sure what age, 35, 36, Casemiro, to have that much weight on him is an awful lot.
Do you know, with the 7-0 at Anfield, when you're watching that, could you ever relate to that? And was there any game in your career like that where, like, it's every time the opposition shoots, it goes in? And can you talk to us about the mentality? Like, what would elite players even be thinking then, being like, does your head completely drop, or do you have some sort of automatic system where I'll be able to play ball a bit, because they seem to just completely lose interest. Luke Shaw particularly, and he's been a very good player this season.
Yeah, well, look, I've been on the end of some backruns, all right, but once you go 2-0 down, 3-0 down, you start thinking, right, the gaffer's going to get the tape out Monday morning. I'm going to have to start running around like a lunatic.
Is that what it is?
That's
that's
in my head,
self-preservation.
I thought he's not going to dig me out on Monday. I'm running around, I'm going to put tackles in, and sometimes you can feel it's a bit noisy, and you just think, right, I'm going to rattle somebody and just get a yellow card, because the gaffer will highlight that on Monday and go, well, at least he's trying. And that was always my thing. But if I do that, if every player does that when you go 2 or 3-0 down and everybody starts, I'm going to protect myself, all of a sudden the team gets that little bit stronger. But players do also just say, I've had enough of this and I want out and don't want to know. But for me, it was always self-preservation. But that's where that bit of professionalism comes in, and the bit of pride. You want players like that 2-0, 3-0. If it's going to be 3-0, it's going to be 3-0, but it's not going to be made for.
Because when it's 3 or 4-0 down, like, and the camera pans to the goal scorer and the team that's scored in the celebration, you rarely see how the opposition react. Maybe a camera shot for a second or two on a player, But are you all looking around at each other being like, I want to see people's reaction here, or is it kind of head down like, oh Jesus, that was kind of my fault there a bit?
It depends. It's obviously depends on the game, but sometimes if somebody's made a mistake, you might have a little quiet word in his ear. I'm never one for them where, you know, when somebody makes an obvious mistake and you see somebody berating him, you're thinking, that's off the cameras.
It is, isn't it?
Why do that? Because he knows he's made a mistake. Go over and have a word in his ear, say you're better than that. Next time he'll be all right. But for me, sometimes, like when them things start happening, I just got very, very selfish and thought, I'm going to run around, I'm going to give 100%, I'm going to rattle somebody, and I'm just going to. Obviously, we're going to get a bit of an earful on Monday because we've lost the game, but I'm going to protect myself somehow.
Which manager gave the worst earfuls at Monday review sessions then?
There was a few.
Depends on the results, obviously. But
it depends on Sam Allardyce was he could give one. Mark Hughes was he was a scary one. He was the big tin the skips. He used to kick them. Coffee be flying everywhere. It was quite aggressive. I'd be like 19, 20 sitting in the dressing room looking at this, and look, it was all a great learning curve. But Dyche as well. Dyche had a bit of fear. But that, I think, fear is a brilliant motivator. When you look at when Spurs got hammered up in St James's and they're coming in at half time 4-0, 5-0 down, they look like a team that weren't afraid. Like, I don't mean like actually physically I'm going to get battered when I go in here, but just a bit of an earful. It just looked like a manager's team to me. But I think teams that have that little bit of a fear factor, like Mark Hughes had the fear with me. Graham Souness, when I first went into Blackburn, I had the bit of a fear with him. And like the one manager I didn't have the fear with was Eddie Howe, and I just couldn't get myself going under him. And I think fear for me was a brilliant motivator.
I think Howe has to kind of act a bit tough because he looks very nice.
Yeah,
I mean, the players think like that. He looks lovely.
Yeah, the thing is, he's a nice guy. He's just probably a bit too nice. And like I say, with that fear, like if you're losing 3-0 and Eddie Howe's the manager, he might take. Like, I remember he took me off at half time in Southampton, me and Dean Marnie, and he was still giving his team talk. He said, Keith, you're coming off, Dino, you're coming off. And Dino started just getting changed in front of him while he's giving the team talk, and he's throwing his boots, and you're thinking it was just a lack of respect. But yeah. Eddie Howe didn't know how to approach it. He just kept talking, and look, he was 33 when he got the Burnley job, so I don't want to keep going back to it. He's obviously evolved since then, but yeah, back in the day it was a tough place from the beat. There was a few egos in Burnley.
But he doesn't look too different to then. Like, so how's he getting the best of these Newcastle players? Like, have times changed? Like, are players different, or are they basically still the same as when you were playing? Because it's not that long ago. Like, I
think players have changed a little bit. I think the philosophy of football has changed. Like, you have to think he came into Burnley, and Burnley didn't play an awful lot of football. Turfmoor, the crowd didn't want to see football. I remember like playing on the wing, I would hear people shouting, get the ball forward, get the ball forward. It didn't matter where I was. And then for Eddie Howe to come in and say, we're going to play out from the back and we're going to do this, and the crowd just it didn't match up well. Like when we're drawing at home at teams and they're booing, and you're thinking, you need to give us a bit of leeway here. We're trying to get a new way of playing, but there was just no patience there. And like I say, I think players have evolved now, and that Newcastle team is head and shoulders above the Burnley team he had. And like you said, he's getting that bit of patience off the St James crowd as well.
It's funny, they're okay with the different style of football under Vincent Kompany when they're going up this year.
Yeah, but again, I think even that team that, say, Eddie Howe had and Sean Dyche had and then Vincent Kompany had, it's chalk and cheese. But I have to say, I got that one absolutely wrong. When Vincent Kompany went into Burnley, I did fear. I thought they're going to throw a big name behind it and hope for the best. But for somebody who's never managed in the Championship, never played in the Championship, I thought it was a huge ask to come in and change how he played. But outstanding stuff, over 100 points for Burnley this season. Brilliant stuff. But can he do it next season in the Premier League is obviously the next big question.
What do you make of this Jason Tindall handshake gate there the last week? People noticing that he's going ahead of Eddie Howe, shaking the hands of managers before Eddie Howe gets a chance. And Bournemouth manager Gary O'Neill made his point of going over Tindall to shake Howe's hand first. Is Tindall a kind of eccentric character? Like,
yeah, JT was a bit of a. I wouldn't. He sort of loves himself. He's one of them guys who comes in, his hair's always spick and span. He goes out to train, it's raining, thunder and lightning, but yet he still looks $1 million. You're just never quite sure with him. He's a lovely bloke. Him and Eddie actually work really well together, because Eddie can be really nice, but JT can drop the hammer when he needs to. And yeah, look, I think they're a good team together, the two of them. And it's obviously been proven at Newcastle. But I can't imagine Eddie, when he sees the assistant manager storming past him to shake somebody's hand, to be too happy. But again, he's probably too nice to pull him and say, here, get back in your spot.
It seems so. The Twitter account is well worth following, which has a few pictures and gifs made from it. Keep an eye out for that. Sean Dyche, you mentioned, is one of those managers. Everton play against Man City 2 p.m. Sky Sports this coming Sunday. Live commentary here on OTB. Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr, if you're not watching on Sky Sports. Everton, we were talking about their lack of goals, we were talking about their lack of wins going back over the last 11 games. Maybe they were storing them all up for Brighton. Yeah,
it was unbelievable, wasn't it? I'm probably one of Sean Dyche's biggest fans, and I didn't see this coming. I don't think anybody's seen this coming. You know, maybe a draw against Brighton, the class that Brighton have, but some of the counter-attacking football from Everton was excellent. Dwight McNeil looked like prime Messi at times. It was unbelievable when he sits the goalkeeper down and just passes into the back of the net, to finish right at the end as well. It was brilliant stuff. And Dwight McNeil, he can be so frustrating because you can see he has that talent, but you only see it in glimpses, and to be doing it in a dogfight when Brighton rock up, brilliant stuff. But we need to see it more, and I'm sure Dyche has already come out and said that's been put to bed now. We beat them 5-1, put it to bed. We don't rest on our laurels now. And look, everybody's thinking this is a free hit for Everton against Manchester City. But if I was Sean Dyche, and I'm sure Dyche is saying, if we can win this game, we're all but safe, lads. So let's not be sitting here on our merits. We beat Brighton, we can afford to lose this one. Go out and have a real swing at these. He had a tough game against Real Madrid. The one thing is, I'm looking at the changes they're going to make. Foden was on the bench, Mahrez, Alvarez, Laporte, Kelvin Phillips, Rico Lewis. All these lads didn't play against Real Madrid. So the Manchester City team that rocks up will still be a very, very good team, an awful lot better than Everton on paper. But I don't know. I think Everton's confidence will be high. Goodison Park will be bouncing. But again, it's just hard to see past that class in Manchester City.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you could understand if they're a few percent below where they normally are, because next week is looming. They know they've that huge return leg against Real Madrid. As you say, massive effort had to go in at the Bernabeu on Tuesday night. So I don't know. I mean, they can rotate, and you've named out a list of established internationals who can come into the team and who can freshen things up. But you would understand if City weren't totally at the pitch fit on Sunday.
Yeah, and look, as an Arsenal fan, that's obviously my big hope, is that Manchester City rock up. They've one eye on Real Madrid during the week, and Haaland has a little bit of a knock. One or two don't really want to play, and the likes of Foden and Mahrez, Alvarez, they come in and maybe they're sulking a little bit because they didn't play in the Bernabeu. I don't think any of these things will happen, by the way, but I'm very, very hopeful that they will. But I just think City are too strong. I think they rotate as much as they like, and I just think there's a good core of professionals in there that will get it done. And I think Pep might even start with his strongest team and then start taking people off. He said go out and win the game in the first half 2 or 3-0, and we'll start taking the big hitters off. But for Everton, with the confidence they have, if they can keep it nice and tight, 20-25 minutes, first half 0-0, anything could happen after that.
Can you imagine the pressure Dwight McNeil is under now this week and everything, because everyone's armouring, this is what you can do, Dwight, I've always said this is what you can do. And now it's same again now tomorrow against City. Like, you have to, first 5 minutes he gets no joy, his head's going straight down, like Kyle Walker's taking him out of the game. Does this happen to players like that out of nowhere, have a brilliant game where they're playing to their potential finally, and then is the next game, that's the hard one, isn't it? Because now suddenly the limelight's back on you. Yeah,
of course. Well, the one thing, it will be quite similar in Brighton and Manchester City, that Brighton kept the large percentage of the ball. Manchester City will keep the large percentage of the ball. So I do think it'll be a counter-attack in the game for Everton, or set pieces, and that's where Dwight McNeil will come into his own. Manchester City won't give up the ball anywhere near as much as Brighton did, so he won't get the amount of chances that he had against Brighton. But when they do, they have to be ruthless. They've shown that they can be ruthless, but look, I just think City are too good. And like I say, with Kyle Walker, Dwight McNeil can go past Kyle Walker, and then Kyle Walker will go and get back at him. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like if City make one mistake, everything will be straight down the throat and hit the back of the net. I don't think it'll be as straightforward as that. But there is a way for Everton to win this game. Like you say, if City come down 1 or 2% and Everton play above themselves, with Goodison hopping, could easily happen. But on paper, looking at Manchester City, it's very hard to go against them.
City are unbeaten in 21. They've won the last 10 league games. A player that's been censured, that is Jack Grealish. For you, is he having as good as a season as everyone's saying?
It's hard to say. I think it's a little bit overinflated. He has been an awful lot better since João Cancelo went to Bayern Munich. It's been an awful lot better. I think when Jack gets the ball, you need to leave him 1v1. You have to leave him 1v1. If João Cancelo or Nathan Ake starts making overlapping runs, you're just congesting that part of the pitch for him. He wants to run in there, come back, and what will generally happen is the right winger and the right back will go and get attracted to Jack. He'll recycle the ball, and all of a sudden they've an overload somewhere else in the pitch, and that's what Pep Guardiola wants. Now look, it's not the most difficult thing to do as a winger, run down the wing, come back and do that, but it's creating overloads, and that's what Pep wants. And people are saying he's been brilliant, he's been excellent. When you look at his assists and you look at his goals, it's not off the wall. They're not that good. His performances have been an awful lot better, but I still think there's a little bit more to come from him. I have to be honest. I think he can give an awful lot more assists, and I'd like to see him hit the back of the net a bit more.
Yeah.
So you think having someone like Aki or Akanji actually plays to his strengths much more so than, say, Zinchenko or Cancelo then?
Yeah, because like I say, they'll stay put. I've had it myself with left backs who want to get round you, and you're running at the right back and you think, right, here we go, 1v1, and then all of a sudden somebody's bombing around you and the centre half is coming over, and all of a sudden it's getting a little bit muddled down. So now when Jack gets it, Ake or Akanji screaming and go on, 1v1, you have him, and then all of a sudden the right back has to go and get, or the right winger has to go and help, and like I say, there's just overloads everywhere. And
I guess you've got that protection by comparison to, say, Cancelo will likely want to go past you.
Exactly. So if Grealish has the ball and he loses it and Cancelo's gone, the arse is out the window, so you have to really be careful. So yeah, I think it just makes him feel that little bit more confident that if I lose the ball here, there's somebody behind me and we can get back. But one thing that Grealish has done as well, and it doesn't get highlighted, is he's tracking back an awful lot better. You've seen the amount of times he's nicked the ball in his own 18-yard box. It's been an awful lot better. So it's not just his attacking side, it's the defensive side. And tactically, can you imagine how hard it would be to get into Pep's team, to get into your head exactly what he wants every moment? And look, it's been a much improved season from him since Cancelo's gone, but not quite as good as what some of the media are making now.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to adapt though, I would think, for Grealish, because when you're at Aston Villa you've got the freedom to drift into different positions and he can dictate where he gets the ball, and naturally his production numbers are going to be higher because he's so much more central to what they do. When you go to Man City, you have to, and Bernardo Silva does the same on the other side, you have to accept you're playing a role for the team as opposed to being the star player that you may have been previously. Yeah,
of course. Look, it's a team game. Like if the game was all about just playing when you have the ball, then I think about getting back into it. The game is an awful lot more than just switching on when you have it. So the one thing he's doing very well is he's getting assists, he's creating overloads, he's dragging people, he attracts people to him, which is obviously what Pep wants, to create overloads. It's brilliant tactically, but I'd like to see a little bit more individual brilliance from him at times, because he has it, he does have it. We've seen it at Villa when he decides, I'm getting my head down, I'm just going to run at people. He has that. But for me, when you see him running down the wing and checking back,
that's all. I'm kind of fascinated by him. That for me is 9 times out of 10 all he does.
Yeah, but like I say,
mean, but that sounds harsh, but I do rate him, but that seems to be all he does.
Yeah, and like I say, when you look at the likes of an Mbappe to Grealish, Mbappe will get it and you're just terrified he's going to skin you and leave you for dead. Grealish is not really that type of player. He might skin you, but then he'll come back and try and beat you again.
Exactly. He won't stay away from you.
Yeah, I don't think he has that pace either to get away from people. He might be able to get past them, but people will have a nibble back at him. But look, his ball manipulation is very, very good. But like I say, sometimes it's a little bit disappointing when you see him 1v1, you think, go on, go for it, and he just comes back. And like I say, when you've Pep telling you in your ear, you're creating overloads, that's what I want. It's very hard. And it's an easy pass as well. It's the easiest thing in the world just to pass the ball backwards. So it's an easy one, but sometimes I'd like to see him just switch it and say, right, I'm going for the jugular here. Just go for it. So yeah, not as good as what people are saying, but much improved from Jack Grealish.
Do you fancy him to get past Madrid next Wednesday?
I think they will, yeah. It was brilliant watching Rudiger and Haaland going at each other, the physical battle off the pitch, because you don't generally see that. When you're watching through the telly, you only see what's in the square, but when you come out and you looked at the whole thing, how Rudiger was really physical with him. Yeah, I fancy City to get through. I don't think it'll be easy, because the one thing I love about Real Madrid and Ancelotti is, City want 80% of the ball. You can have 80% of the ball, we're still going to beat you. Like they just find ways to beat teams, and I don't think it'll be easy. I don't think City will go and blitz them 3 or 4-0. I think they'll just get over the line, and if they don't win it this year, every year we seem to say. But
I hope they win it so that he leaves, Pep.
Do you think he leaves as soon as he wins it?
He's done the Champions League. It's like, thank God for that. He might have to retain it. Is the only thing for himself. He hasn't won it since 2011. It's a damning indictment of one of the greatest managers ever.
But that was with Messi, wasn't it?
Barcelona, yeah. He's only won it with Messi. There's no when people say that, it's like, yeah, but he also managed Messi to greatness. Yeah. So he also had a part to play in it. But I have a feeling it's going to be a Madrid-Inter final. I just have a feeling Madrid are going
to Madrid. I've watched Madrid this season go to Liverpool, rip them apart at Anfield, rip Barcelona apart in the Cup semi-finals a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you said it.
When it comes to big games,
you said it, yeah. Like I said this during the week on the show, on the morning show, and people were on to me being like, "But you look at Man City's record, like they're unbelievable at the Etihad." But it doesn't matter. Like you said about Madrid, they don't even have a discernible style of play. Like they're just like, we just know how to win games. Yeah. They're a reflection of their manager. They're so calm and composed.
It's actually like the fact that you've Modric, Kroos in there, Tuchel, all these players who love to be on the ball, but they're playing against a team that want the ball and are going to demand to have it for 80% of it, and you just go, no problem.
I think it'll be about 2-2 after 90 minutes and Madrid will win in extra time. I think City will be the better team, and then you'll have Ancelotti with the eyebrow afterwards being like, I did it again.
The only thing I question is if Walker or Stones plays right back and Vinicius Junior is going to play left wing, and then you're popping them into the midfield when they have the ball, you're leaving yourself exposed against their most dangerous player. So far be it from me to tell Pep how to set up tactically, but I would tell Kyle Walker, just go and stand on Vinicius. Don't worry about attacking, go and stand on him.
I'd say you would love to play for Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, he just seems like one of their managers, doesn't he? Like he takes into account what the other team has. He says, yeah, they're going to want the ball, lads, let them have the ball, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. When we get it, we'll hurt them.
No, but you personally, I think you'd love playing for Ancelotti over Pep.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably just a reflection on the managers I've had over the years, but yeah, the tactics are very, very easy. Get back, make yourself a body, don't give them anything easy, and when you get the ball, the great thing about Ancelotti is I think when Madrid win the ball, I don't think he's telling Modric and Benzema where to be doing and what to do. He says, this is what I want you to do. When you win it, go and do what you like, go and score, but this is what I want defensively. And when a manager does that, tells you how to set up defensively, but this says, I trust you as a player, go and do it, you love it. Yeah,
should be a cracker midweek. Arsenal against Brighton then, Keith. When we look at this, Brighton won 3 of the last 4 away from home against Arsenal. But obviously they're coming pretty shell-shocked after what happened last week against Everton, and by contrast, Arsenal picked up that great win at St James's Park. So how do you see this one going? Sunday afternoons on Sky Sports 4:30, live commentary on OTB as well with Nathan Murphy and Kenny Cunningham.
Well, it's a must win for Arsenal to keep the race going with Manchester City. Arsenal were excellent. I think Odegaard was unbelievable. He really was. The way he relieved the pressure, some of his passing ability was unbelievable. And when it's helter-skelter like that, and when there's 80,000 people screaming at you, just have that calmness, that presence of mind in the middle of the pitch was excellent. But the one person I want to speak about as well is Jorginho. Putting him in there, I know in hindsight people are saying, oh yeah, well he's a very, very calm person, you would put him in them type of games. That was a big call for Mikel Arteta to put him into that game, and the way I don't want to say game management. I know Newcastle came out and said Arsenal were time wasting a bit, but that's what you need to do. I spoke here last week and I said you can't just sit there and go toe to toe with Newcastle. You have to be clever with it. You have to have a bit of game management, and I thought every aspect of the game from Arsenal, game management, the way they attacked, the way they defended, the way they kept the ball at times, I thought it was outstanding. It really was, and it's the total opposite of Brighton. Brighton were so poor when they got hammered, but I just seen signs that Brighton are starting to slow down this season. They've been excellent. It's been a really good season for them. I don't want to put a negative spin in it. As I'm looking through the top goal scorers: McAllister with 10, Pascal Gross with 8, Matoma with 7, and Solly March with 6. Leandro Trossard is still on that list with 7. So when you think of the players they've lost over the couple of years, to just keep being at the right end of the table, it's outstanding stuff. It is. And I love De Zerbi. I think when Potter left Brighton, you're thinking, this is Potter's DNA. Is he going to be able to take the mantle? If Anton has probably got better under De Zerbi, which is, all credit to him. So after an embarrassing loss to Everton, Brighton will really have the bit between their teeth. But again, I back Arsenal after what they did against Newcastle. I can't see past Arsenal. I hope they win just to keep it alive.
We've spoken about Martinelli's goals and Saka's goals. For Odegaard, I think it's now 16 without penalties he's scored this year. Scored some very important goals in recent weeks against Chelsea and against Newcastle. It seems to be incredible to me, Keith, popping up in that little pocket of space. If a midfield loses track of him, he's a good long shooter as well. He's a very, very potent player to have in that gap between the midfield and the defence. Yeah,
he's very capable from the edge of the box. He's a great strike, and he has that timing as well. He doesn't get ahead of the ball. Sometimes you see these centre midfielders and they're in the box before the ball even comes in, and it's very hard to stand from a score from a standing header. So the timing has to be right. He has that. It's like like a young Frank Lampard. Lampard was brilliant at those third man running the edge of the box. When people would just take their eye off him, he just arrived late and bang. And people would always say, it just landed on him. It doesn't just land on him. He's timed that there. And Odegaard seems to have a touch of that as well. Knows when to make the box. And look, playing on the half turn, the way he passes them balls through. And again, I had question marks over Odegaard when he came in. When he obviously a bit of a whiz kid at Real Madrid, but never really quite made the grade. And you're thinking, is he a bit of a youth, flash in the pan type of thing? But nothing could be further from the truth. Absolutely excellent for Arsenal, and he's just getting stronger and stronger with them goals without penalties as well. Great return.
What area of the pitch do you think Arsenal need to improve in most over the summer?
I'd like another centre forward. I'm absolutely happy with Gabriel Jesus. I just think injuries from time to time will come and get him, so we do need some sort of backup there. We need backup in the wings as well. I know Trossard can play out there, but Saka and Martinelli, brilliant starting 11, but if one of them get injured, you need to have somebody coming in of a level as well. And I think right back Ben White, brilliant at right back, but I still think we need Tomiyasu was not really challenging Ben White, so you need that competition within it. And look, if you bring Declan Rice in, which is so I'm led to believe will happen, the competition in that team just goes through the roof. And like I say, next season with Champions League football, it's going to be a big ask to challenge on both fronts. But if we do get the likes of Rice in, I'll be over the moon with that.
Are you happy with Ramsdale, Gabriel and Saliba?
Yeah, I would be happy with them. If you guaranteed me they'd be fit all season, I wouldn't have to change that in there. But the fact is, I don't think they will be. Ramsdale, I mean, I said this last week, I can make an argument for every one of Arsenal starting 11 to be player of the season in that position. They've been excellent. Like, you go from Ramsdale to White to Zinchenko to Saliba, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. They've all been outstanding, played out of their skin. So it's very hard to say, I want that fella out, I want to pick this fella in. And I think Saka, I'm hearing rumours that he's pretty much wants to go to Bayer Leverkusen as well. So look, if we do get Rice in, it'll be excellent. But the guts of a very, very good Arsenal team is there, so just need to be careful who we bring in. They have to be the right fit, not just a good player. They have to be the right fit and the right mentality for the club.
Monday night then, we've got Leicester against Liverpool, Sky Sports, 8 p.m. We talked about Liverpool a bit earlier on, Keith, this run that they're on. 5 successive victories now in the Premier League, just outside the top 4, albeit they have played a game more than Manchester United, so it's still out of their hands as things stand. But they'll want to win their last 3 games and try and put themselves into a position. They're up against the Leicester side, though, fighting for their lives now at this stage. After last weekend, they've dropped into the bottom 3.
Yeah, it's hard to think. Like, I'm looking at Leicester against Fulham and you're thinking they knew Liverpool was next. I know they're at home, but Liverpool's next, probably not expecting to get much out of that, so let's go all gun blaze and try and get something out of Fulham. They just looked like they didn't realise they were in a relegation battle. They looked just lacklustre. Like, Fulham scored, I think, 3 goals, and then they decided, like, let's try a leg here. And then you have Maddison coming out on social media saying things like we weren't hungry enough. Why don't you just get into the training ground and do it on the pitch? Don't be thinking I'll get my phone and start tweeting about all this.
Yeah.
Get your priorities right. And it sounded like he was criticising the team. He didn't sound like he was involved himself.
Yeah. You called Maddison a good while ago. You called him that wanting to leave. I thought
his head was turned. I still think his head has been turned. And look, I don't want to be critical of him, but when you're playing for a team who's in a relegation battle and you're coming off and the back pass, you had a bad back pass a couple of weeks ago, gave a goal away. Yeah. His agent had been his ear. Don't be too down about it. Liverpool want you, Arsenal want you, and it's look. Fans don't want to hear that. But if you know you're getting relegated, it's grand. I'm probably going to double my wages next season anyway. It's very hard to care.
What you want in those circumstances, someone like Rafinha last year, where he's getting clapped off the pitch by the Leeds fans for everyone knew he was going to leave at the end of the year, relegated or not relegated. But the guy put in some big performances at the end of the year to make sure his team stays up. If you're a Leicester fan, that's what you want from Maddison.
Yeah. Of course,
just grift and effort.
Janino and Middlesbrough style. Yeah,
that's all you want. Like I always come back to it. If you give 100%, the fans will largely accept that. You know, we all have off days. We miscontrol the football. The pass wasn't quite right. But if you're not running around and you're not giving it all, fans will see that, and I think that's happened with James Maddison.
Vardy said during the week, Jamie Vardy, if Leicester stay up, it's a bigger achievement than winning the league. Would you agree?
No.
That's a mad quote, isn't it?
Well, I think he's just trying to get across how big of a challenge it is. Yeah, he's doing the opposite of Maddison. And look, I would prefer stuff like that coming out of Vardy's mouth saying if we manage to get out of this would be big, because that's sort of galvanising his dressing room. It's throwing the gauntlet down. There's the challenge. But Madison just seemed to be criticising people, and I know he used the word we weren't good enough and we this, but it felt like to me he was detaching himself from that performance, saying they weren't good enough. And I don't know, when you see him in the dressing room on a Monday morning, do you shake his hand? I just think it's not a great feel.
As a teammate, what do you make of that? Because obviously, like, as a team, you would probably talk about that. Look, James is after firing off a tweet.
Yeah, well, look, I've had it before in dressing rooms, and managers have brought it up on Monday mornings about people tweeting. And
so, like, I wonder at the Man United players. Remember they went through under Ragnick, particularly. There seemed to be a run of it where this isn't good enough. I apologise. We're going to put it better and whatever else. I'm just wondering, as a teammate who maybe isn't doing that, what you think about them.
I just don't get it. I think it's something to appease the fans. I think when you're putting out statements like that, we weren't good enough, we defend from the front, we that's all stuff for the fans. You know what the fans want to see is running around. They don't want to see you tweeting and reading your tweets and they go, he's got a spot on with his tweet. Run around, show the fans that you care. Do it with what you're doing on the pitch, not with what the words you're using on Twitter. And look, for me, when I played under Sean Dyche, he said, you can have use of Twitter, you can have use of social medias, but do not speak about football on it. If you tweet about football, I'll come down you like a ton of bricks. And I don't know why that isn't the case still. If you want to be on it, no problem. To further his career, commercial side of it, no problem. But don't talk about football.
It's one of the biggest acts of self-belief in Premier League history. Jamie Vardy turning down Arsenal in 2016 to stay at Leicester.
Yeah, well,
should he have gone? Like, in hindsight,
I think so. Yeah, I think obviously Arsenal. Like, it's hard to tell. Leicester were in in 2016 were a big club, but Arsenal are an elite club. And like when you think back of how he plays, when he runs the channel, you can just think of Arsenal midfielders slipping him through. It looked like a match made in heaven. But sometimes, like I left Preston to go to Burnley, and in hindsight, I would now have stayed in Preston because I was comfortable there. I was happy. I was playing good football, and I think Jamie Vardy sees that at Leicester. He's happy there. His family are settled. He's playing good football. And I don't want to
be seen as the guy who jumped ship after the success as well.
Yeah, but I don't think he really minds either. Kante was bought, wasn't he? But yeah, I don't think Vardy even minds. He's getting that little bit older now. He knows he can't play every single game. So even if Leicester were to go to the Championship, I'm not sure Vardy would be lining up to get out of there. You know, he's winding down. His best days are behind him. So if he can score the goals to keep them in the league, he gets that hero status as well.
Or maybe it wasn't self-belief. Maybe it was a lack of belief that he could do it at Arsenal. But I was always interested by that decision. It's rare you'd see it, isn't it? That a player turns down a on paper bigger club.
Having met Jamie Vardy a few times, he's not low on confidence whatsoever. He's quite a confident boy. But look, like I say, sometimes it's just a good fit. You know, if your family's happy, if your kids are in a decent school and they're getting on with it, there's a human side to all this as well. You know, and if he's earning 100 grand a week at Leicester and 150 at Arsenal, it really doesn't make that much difference when you're talking about your family. You know.
Right, are Liverpool going to get a result here and keep this top 4 race going?
If Liverpool were at home, I'd give Leicester absolutely no chance, and I still expect Liverpool to go and win the game because Leicester, like, there's so many players you could throw under the bus. Yuri Tillemans, Wout Faes, Soyuncu, Christensen, James Maddison as well. Just not good enough. So many of them have just not turned up this season.
That team will be carved apart if they get relegated.
Exactly. Yeah, if that goes down, it will really be carved apart. And like you say, people think you go down, you'll bounce back up with the parachute money. That Championship is absolutely ruthless. You do not want to be going down there. If you can avoid it, you have to avoid it. But saying all that, I think Liverpool, although they haven't been great, they're on this roll, they're getting results, and they have this knack now of not playing well but winning games of football, and I think they might just do the same.
Very good, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. You have been listening to the Football Kickoff with thanks to Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. We will talk to you again next Friday.
The Football Kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.